Good day. This is Mr. Browning, and today we are going to discuss the compromises. The compromise, which is known as the Missouri Compromise, and the Compromise of 1860. The reason why we're going to talk about these is because we are in the middle of our Civil War unit, and we're learning about the issues leading up to the Civil War. The Missouri Compromise and the Compromise of 1860 are major issues of the United States, specifically as it relates to land allotments and the distribution of slave states versus free states. If we look at this map, we can clearly count how many states were allotted as slave states and free states. Now, if you notice the timestamp at the top, this was 1860. We're not here yet. We are not here yet. So this is a map that kind of shows you a close to finished product of the arrangement after the Compromise of 1850. Again, we're discussing these compromises to quickly understand that although slavery was an issue, economics and policy were even bigger. So it's important to understand this in eighth grade as we prepare to move towards the milestones assessment. So, the Missouri Compromise. In 1819, the United States was divided equally with 11 free states and 11 slave states. So that gives us 22 states in the United States currently. People living in the Missouri Territory applied for statehood as a slave state. However, Congress did not approve this because there would be an imbalance of power. That means that more states equal more power. Non-slave holding states, if Missouri was allotted as a slave state, would have less power than slave states. So essentially, this was unfair to the North. If we look here, we will see how things were broken down. There was a line drawn here at the Arkansas Territory, and Maine was admitted as a free state. This was to keep the balance of slave states and free states. So, to keep that balance in the U.S. Congress, a compromise was made to allow Maine to be admitted to the Union as a free state, while Missouri was added to the Union as a slave state. Also, a part of the compromise stated that slavery would be outlawed north of the 36-degree line of latitude. If we backtrack, you will see that very clearly there is a line drawn under the Arkansas Territory where slavery would no longer be allowed. Now, as we move into further discussion, again, we must note that westward expansion was a big issue, was a big part of the discussion of slavery and slave states and economy in the United States. So in 1850, California applied for admission as a free state. Once again, the balance of power in the Senate was threatened. The South did not want to give the North a majority in the Senate. The Compromise of 1850 had 4 parts. California was able to enter as a free state. The rest of the Mexican secession was divided into North Mexico and Utah. In each state, voters would decide the issue of slavery. So as a result, a strict new fugitive law was passed. This law was passed to specifically pacify Southerners so that they would be able to claim their slaves as their own, their territories as their own. So, California was admitted as a free state. Utah and New Mexico were entered as slave states, which means that each state still has their popular sovereignty. Each state still has the right to decide what will take place. Now, the Compromise of 1850 was a massive, massive issue. However, here's the Fugitive Slave Act, which kind of explains what took place. In the South, the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850 was seen as a victory. It required that all citizens were obligated to return runaway slaves, which means that if any slaves crossed into these territories where people were free, the slaves must be returned. So this pacified the South and allowed them to be able to work with the Compromise of 1850. Now, tomorrow we'll move forward into the Georgia Platform. It's very important to understand the concept of Compromise of 1850 and the Missouri Compromise, because as these develop, we further understand the issues of slavery, we further understand the issues of economy, and we further understand the issues of policy that led to the Civil War.